Hello. Ta-da!
Good morning.
I left the paper up there because I have too much to carry. Good morning and welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzy edition.
Adventures of Liz and Rebecca, Becky and Lizzy. Yeah, still saying all of it right. Okay. Hi. I didn't know if I just said Becky like twice, you know. Look, I wanted to show you all progress on this. We're trying to jam a lot in because guess what? I came in late again. And I just got all the packages, I think, in the system to go out today because we still had a lot. Like we filmed that really short episode yesterday so that we could get everything done. I got like 4 packages done. So I'm really hoping this is my Goldenfern by Jennifer Steingass. And yeah, this sleeve's going to be interesting. We're going to see what happens when I block it. But it's going to be, I have all these bracelets on, which are probably throwing off the look of
Weirdness.
it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be nice and like comfy down like that. But right now it's a little puckery, but whatever. But you can see the progress I've made on the sleeves. I had to show you all this because I'm hoping, I'm hoping to finish this weekend. I'm like 2 decreases. I put it on a stitch holder because I'm knitting it on
Little itty bitty.
little bitties that might have worked with this, but might not have with my chunky arms. 12-inch needles, which I realized I don't think the 12-inch needles are on the website for our sale this week. I'll try to get them there. I got all the crochet hooks up yesterday, I think. So anyway, breathe. So I'm hoping that this is my ribbing that's flipping up. I'm hoping blocking will keep that down a little, but it's so short. Like people getting ahead of myself. If I have a chance, I'll talk about stockinette and curling and things like that and how ribbing helps, but not when it's this little, maybe. So, but we have other things to talk about today. So, hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in actually pretty warm for this time of year and sunny, Brevard, North Carolina. We had such an awesome.
Liz, I'm the minion there. It's going to be like 70 today.
Mm-hmm. Today?
Yeah.
I thought it was tomorrow.
73
It's
tomorrow.
warming up for tomorrow.
Yeah.
We had an awesome sunset last night.
We did.
I tried to take photos as I drove, like driving, click, click, like eyes on the road, click, click. Oh, it didn't work.
It was
just
over Ingalls.
Oh yeah, you were like, it was this color.
It looked like this.
Okay,
over
but
Ingalls.
see, I saw the sky on fire.
Oh
though.
yeah,
You probably saw the.
I saw it in my rear view mirror, but when I was passing Ingalls, it was the western sky looked like this, with the hot pinks and the blues. And
waiting for the light to change as I left the shop. To this lens and then that lens is gonna you're not gonna see it.
Yeah.
But
there was even some pink when I got home. It was awesome.
Like on fire. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that.
Yeah.
But that was while I was driving, so that was in motion. So and I was trying to be safe. Let me just make that disclaimer. It was just, I mean, I don't know, talking about the sun and the weather made me think of last night. And it was just like, I wanted to pull over so many times. And by the time I got to the overlook, like it was the overlook where I live in Conisty on the road as you go in doesn't point the right direction. It points the right direction to like catch the afterglow and stuff, the reflection of the sunset, which can be really cool. As I left the overlook, because when I passed the overlook on the way home, it was gone. The sky was gray. And as I turned, I was like, oh, it's still happening over there, but there wasn't a good spot for it, So it was pretty. I tried to just enjoy it and not try to take pictures and just soak it in. It was breathtaking.
The initial, when we walked out of the shop, I took pictures. I took pictures when I got in the car, but then like the sky over Ingalls was, I was driving and couldn't, all the lights hit green. Like it wasn't like there was a red light.
I know, right? And I was like wanting to pull over but not get hit by the car behind me to take a photo whenever I passed a big open field. And all the other cars, I'm like, why aren't they stomping on their brakes and doing the same thing I'm wanting to do? Yeah. But it's times like these I really enjoy where we live because it's pretty. So come visit us, right? I don't know how much. Well, maybe I'll save I have mousecapades but I'll save them because we should do the actual important stuff. But what I will do is, just in case we run long or we have customers like right at 10 o'clock, I'm going to go over the schedule right now.
Okay.
So knit night is tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. on Zoom. Join us from wherever you are, 7 to 9 p.m. East Coast time in the US. Join us wherever you may happen to be with the shop phone number.
828-877-3550.
I'm trying to move things so everyone can drink in the difference in my sleeves. It's just fun. It's just, this is curling, right? It's a little longer than it looks. Okay. Squirrel. He was like, someone's walking dogs outside and it looked funny for a minute, but you know, when you're walking more than one dog, it'll look funny. Okay, so we have the Twilight Tour and Christmas Parade here in town if you're a local on the 4th, which is Saturday. So we will be open a little later on Saturday. I am contemplating, Liz doesn't know this. I'm contemplating, what? It's not that bad, I think. I'm contemplating pulling out the spinny wheel again for the Twilight Tour, but with more moderate discounts, not as big, probably between like 5 and 15%. Spin the wheel. So contemplating. So if you're in town for the Twilight Tour and would like to save some money on some yarn and supplies, come on and give the wheel a spin. Unless, you know, Liz has a different idea or nixes my idea. But now I've said it out loud. So
That's like, you know,
it's
I'm
evil.
gonna go spend the night over here, and they already said yes, so you have to say yes too. And
yeah, they think that you said it was okay, so it's got to be okay. No, if you're like, that's too much, we won't do it. It's okay.
we're gonna be here till 8. So
we gotta make it fun somehow, or I'm gonna like either lose my mind or fall asleep. So
yeah,
come visit on Saturday. So the Christmas parade is at like 3, I want to say. For anyone local, go check out Heart of Brevard's page and stuff.
It's their 50th parade or 25th parade.
It's 50th, I think. It's a big deal, apparently. They made little brochures, like bulletin brochures, not just like single sheets. They stapled stuff. That means it's important. So it's gonna be a big deal, I think. And we will. That was a sewing needle. I'll find it later. I was just trying to organize in front of me. This is why I don't knit when we're on camera, because it would just, there it is. I'd make a hot mess. Okay. So, yes, that's the only crazy thing happening this weekend. And then hopefully I'm going to sleep on Sunday, because a week from Sunday, I guess, right? Did we look at
from Sunday? It's the 12th.
Already? How is that possible? No. Yes, I'm looking at the wrong month. I'm like, there's 2 weeks. That's January. Never mind. A week from Sunday is our weekend sit and stitch, which we do on Sunday afternoons now from 1 to 5 p.m. You don't have to be there for all 4 hours. We will, but you don't have to. It's on Facebook Live and Zoom. And Zoom, it's that shop phone number again. And Facebook Live, you just go to our Facebook page and you hopefully can watch me and hear Zoom. And we always encourage people to head on over to Zoom to actually see a whole crowd of people. So unless you really love staring at this, I don't know. I mean, I try to be entertaining. So yeah. Yeah. So and then next week will be the same schedule we always have. Of Tuesday, we will talk about what we did on the weekend and what we got done. Hopefully I get this done. Like, I can get that done in a weekend, right? I got most of this done. I was up here. I got most of this done last night because I watched Shadow and Bone and just was like, whoa. There was one part in the very last episode. I just had to stop knitting and watch. Just had to watch. So yeah, I did that.
I'm hoping to get this done or this weekend.
I had at least one spot on this earlier in the night though, but I was like, there's a weird lump there. Why is there weird? And it was, I think I knit into the stitch below by accident. Oops. So like 2 strands, like it just looked funny. So it took me 6 or 7 tries of dropping down and picking up, because I was dropping down and picking up with my little 12-inch needle, trying to go down to here. and I kept missing a strand, and I'd get it up and be like, I still missed, or I missed that one, or this one's twisted. What did I do? I think I fixed it. And I hope it comes out with blocking if there's any weird gappiness.
Even when you know how to fix mistakes, doesn't matter how experienced you are.
It's not always perfect.
It's not always perfect.
I had to tell a bunch of people yesterday, like, mistakes will happen. Even when you're experienced, and learning how to fix your mistakes. This is a conversation I had more than once yesterday. Learning how to fix your mistakes, the way that becomes muscle memory, or the way you learn that, is making lots of mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn how to fix them. And then it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. It's a necessary evil.
Perfection in knitting is not something you're ever going to achieve.
Or if you're
unless
the kind
you're
of person,
perfecting knitting or making mistakes and fixing them. Like,
and the person who wants perfection, there's gonna be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into that. So if you want that, go for it. But know that most people don't achieve that. And like this, some people are gonna look at this and go, it's beautiful. And I'm gonna say, okay, there's all these problems with it, but I'm okay with that. I'm gonna accept it and move on. Like right now it's doing a weird pucker thing right over the girls, and it probably will even after I block it. And actually this might kind of relate to one of our questions today.
Yes.
So segue, I'm going to stop talking about, like, I'm going to wrap up one thing while you're getting your stuff out. What led me to talking about this is we're going to talk about our projects next week on Tuesday usually, but at some point I do want to start sneaking in like great ideas for holiday presents. Hanukkah is currently happening and Christmas is coming, and late Hanukkah presents we could suggest, or try to get things in, like try to get orders to us before the 15th. I would say I'm going to move up the date. The post office said the 17th.
Well, I read a WLOS, our local news thing, and they're like, UPS, you can go till the 18th or the 19th. It'll cost you more, but you can.
We don't use UPS.
And postal, they're saying like the 15th.
Yeah. So get your orders into us soon if you want us to ship them to you. They could go super fast, but if you want them by Christmas, as soon as possible is better. So
I told Mom I've lost 2 days and I was a day behind anyway. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did you finish binding that one?
I did.
Before we were going to wrap up with that at least, or do you want to show it off now?
It doesn't matter.
You just look like you're about to
we can undo it.
Okay, those of you who put questions in, hang on one more second. We are going to segue into that question that kind of has to do with the weird drapiness of this. But we need to show off because she finished it. So you're on your last Christmas one.
This is the third, which means I have finished. I finished 13 Papillons.
Like not since the beginning of the year.
No. Lifetime of my.
But lifetime,
Papillon.
Your first one was when we started the show.
Yeah.
Which was like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost 2. This, oh my gosh, it's like see-through, but not,
yeah, because it's mostly fingering weight.
That's awesome. On what size needle?
9.
Okay, that's still your happy place for fingering.
Yeah, it goes from fingering weight. There's some sport.
What I love about this, sorry.
DK, it's the Alba is the green. So
what I love about this, so you were following the moth instructions of when to switch colors. You picked out your 6 and your pop and your contrast. I do love that this gets darker as you go down.
Yep.
Like it was an intentional fade.
Yeah.
So
I try and fade them. I did not, however, continue with the green after the green stops at the end of stripe 29.
Is that because you ran out of yarn or you wanted to include a different color?
I had extra yarn, but I ran out of the ball. Like, I didn't want to start a new ball.
That makes sense.
I wanted to finish with August tweed, which is the 2 rows afterwards, and then the pop, and then
you still
peach
had
Bellini.
Yeah, you still
had lots
of
left
that.
over.
So, and that actually is kind of awesome because it gets darker, but then you have this really light pop at the end. That's super cool. You can change the instructions and do what you want, and it's fantastic. The only thing I wouldn't change on the Papillon is the actual what you knit when, like numbers.
You can change the colors.
Yes,
all you want.
Okay. Yeah. Because as soon as I said
don't change the pattern.
As soon as I said you could do what you want, and I'm like, someone's gonna try to Carolize it. And
no.
Please don't do that. It's sadness. Carolize with the colors.
Yes.
Right. paralyzed with the colors. I'm like resisting the
I,
urge to
I
push
keep
this up.
playing with colors in it because
Ooh.
the possibilities are endless. So, and I have some that are negative and then reverse negative. And
we'll see what happens when I block this. The top row here, like the first few rows of color work, when I push this up, a little tight, but which means they will either get sucked into like back in when I push up my sleeves, or I shouldn't push up my sleeves, or it will block a little better, a little bit. Let's get to our actual questions.
Okay, this question came in like 2 weeks ago, but because Thanksgiving was
We decided not to answer it on Thanksgiving because we did a special episode. We could have, but it wasn't really a Dear Becky and Lizzy. So we saved it. Okay.
Dear Becky and Lizzy, in the Sideshow episode 181, you mentioned sweaters sliding up because of larger bust sizes. Years ago, I saw patterns that used a 1-inch short row section per size for all sizes over C cups. C was 1 inch, D was 2 inches, and so on. With the intricacies of some of the current patterns, would it still be possible to adapt some of them and add this extra fabric so the sweater won't ride up in front? And what colors are considered dark and broody? Curious as a cat.
Okay. I have so many thoughts on this, some of which may not be what this person wants to hear, but I want to go backwards. I don't want to lose track of the dark and broody. So let's get that out of the way. I mean, it's not getting out of the way, but what colors are dark and broody? Like you keep saying you like dark and broody.
I like dark and broody.
So what are your definitions of dark and broody?
Charcoal, black, deep wine colors, deep red colors, even deep greens or deep blues, like anything that is on the darker end
Murky.
of the spectrum. Colors that a lot of people should not be knitting with if they have trouble seeing black.
Yeah.
Like everybody says,
and I don't know how much of that is a superstition.
Yeah, you know. Everybody says black is like impossible to knit with, but any dark color is the same as black. So
just use lots of light, bright
put
needles
it on
underneath,
bright needles, shine light. You can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like a medium gray is kind of getting out of the dark and broody.
I think it depends on how much medium gray is overall in the piece.
Yeah,
because that can be
so it can highlight.
Like the Papillon you're working on right now is overall dark and broody.
Yeah,
and there's some medium gray. There's even some really light pops in it, but overall
it'll be dark and broody.
Yeah. The more light colored yarn you put into it, the more it breaks away from that.
Yeah.
Right. So anything kind of that you would describe as kind of murky and dark. And well, and I gotta say 9 times out of 10, it's red and black that are your
red and black
colors.
are my favorite dark and broody.
But and they're not, you wouldn't always call red in general dark and broody, but it can be.
Yeah, like I prefer the wine or the really deep red.
I do too. The burgundies, like this is spice plum. It's like it's a broody pink kind of, right? It's not a super bright pink.
Yeah. It's on the dark and broody spectrum of pink. Yeah.
So now let's get back to hopefully that we can always talk more about dark and broody, but let's get back to the whole bust thing. I don't know if we're talking so much about, I see where she's going about the front riding up. I think part of what we were addressing is if it's all over increase like this, like it's a little ripply in the front, and I bet in the back it does a lot more ripples because it's evenly spread increases front and back. My girls fill out the front, especially if I do this. And there's not much filling out the back. So I like my Wintersol sweater, it ruffles a little in the back because I don't have boobs on my back. So, but the larger question is, can you make adaptations for shaping to allow for your girls? And I will say, one of our knitters came in this week. We were looking at a sweater pattern and it had instructions for that. And she's going to skip them because she's not as ample and she doesn't think she needs them. And that's perfectly fine.
The ranunculus has optional darts underneath. So like it's the reverse of adding fabric. You're actually taking it away. So
to give it like start with the
larger.
Well, and hers is written for bust sizes, but then if you wanted to not have it be too flowy under the girls because you're not as big down here as you are up here, that's where the darts come in. I mean, one of the things that my knitter who came in this week said, and she's got a point, is not everyone's girls sit in the same place. So sometimes where it's telling you to put these things will give you a curve where your girls are not going to be. So that's, anything that is, well, here's what you do just as generic instructions. There's always a danger with that. There's a hopeful this will work across the board, but it's the same issue as when someone writes a pattern and then sizes it up for the bigger people and just decides to exponentially increase things. People aren't all just shaped like this and then get proportionally exactly the same, bigger or smaller.
I have I can wear larger sizes from here down, but I'm a small chested fat girl.
I wasn't meaning to agree to that.
No,
total
but it's a thing.
If she says, but that's what she is.
The dresses are deceiving.
Yeah, people you have girls, and you're like, no, I just make it look like I do.
Really don't. And
I have girls, and I try to hide them. So
I'm two different sizes. Yeah. So if I pull a sweater pattern that I want to fit up here, I have to expand a lot down here or crop the crap out of it. And that's why I make oversized stuff.
You make oversized and you crop the heck out of it.
And I crop the heck out of it.
Yeah.
But every size is different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the full disclaimer before we even start this is that it's going to take some trial and error. If you want to engage in shaping for the girls, taking generic instructions and applying them may or may not work. Not just because there are really intricate patterns now, or there's different stylings of patterns now, or, all the color work. I don't even want to mess with that. But also because where they tell you to put them, I want to say one of the sweaters this other knitter is bringing in was to put decreases right after the armhole shaping. And that may or may not work with your girls and accent your girls, or you may end up with a pucker that's up here or down here when your girls are the other place, So, and for me, a lot of it changes with the bra I'm wearing. I've settled into one type of bra that I jokingly say locks and loads the girls. It just, it's got underwire. Anyone who's uncomfortable talking about bras, plug your ears for the next couple minutes, but it's got underwire that goes all the way around up to here. So it's not digging into my sides, but that also, lifts them pretty high. But that makes it actually pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
I found a bra that, other than the shoulder straps, are already sliding down a little bit, which probably means they're not quite the right size, but I'm not going to get fitted right now. So we're guessing anyway. But I found something that works for me. But that I definitely fit into clothes a lot differently with the bra on and with the bra off. Right. So that changes things too. So that's the first disclaimer, is you might have to do some trial and error to make sure it actually fits properly, and then be really gentle with your blocking to make sure that doesn't shift it. That doesn't mean it's not worth trying, but so I will also say, I don't do bust shaping. I actually have ample girls, and I have never engaged in any type of bust shaping. Some of that is because as a yarn shop owner, I have to keep it as basic as possible. I mean, it could be good to have one with shaping to show people how shaping can work. But on the whole, and when I first started the shop, it was, just make things in the smallest size so you can hang them up on, you can get them done faster, and you can hang them up on the mannequins, and, yay. But more often than not, I make ones to fit me now, because I am the best model for them. They actually look kind of weird and ratchet on the models, but then I can rotate through them, and someone is more likely to notice a sweater if I'm in it than if it's up on the shelf. I mean, it's hit or miss actually, but I make something I can't wear.
I think,
and I'm pretty big, so
play around with the pattern for you.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody asks you to make a sweater with shaping, be like, no, because boobs. It's what I do with sewing, is I found a pattern that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, you can sew me that dress. And I'm like,
it's not gonna fit
no, because boots. If you find something that works for you, you're gonna have to play around with it a lot to just make sure that it fits.
And if you're making it for someone else, unless you have them there to try it on every step of the way, especially if it's a surprise, keep it
Yeah.
as basic as you can, is what I say. Here's my other issue with generalized generic bust instructions. And what that email was saying is, 1 inch for an A cup, 2 inch for a B cup, things like that. Anyone who's bustier like me is probably familiar with not all cup sizes are the same. Not all C cups are the same. It depends on your band size. If you are not aware of this, here's a crash course. And I have to remember the way that it goes. It's like a 38C. The molded cup is the same size as like a 40B. And the same size molded cup as a 36D. Like it's not universal. It's not like, well, we figure out your band size and then we slap the same cup size on there. Like there's a ratio that it goes through. So if I got like, I don't think y'all want to know my bust size, but if I got skinnier, which I have recently, like I've gained and lost weight, I will say that this guy with all his puckeriness here, some of that is because this sweater, when I decided to make it, I was bigger. I've had this on needles for a while and I'm not to the healthy weight I would like to be. Let's put it that way. I'm not trying to get to be a skinny mini because that's not going to fit me anymore. But I wouldn't mind feeling better in my skin a little bit more than I do now. But for right now, I'm just trying to eat healthy, all that good stuff. But all the craziness I've been through in the past 8 months or so, I've definitely lost weight or changed shape from when I started making this, which is probably going to account for some of the puckeriness. I'm going to try to talk through that because if I wait, we're going to have dead hair of just you sneezing. Sorry.
It's okay.
Didn't mean to draw attention. Bless you. Okay.
Thank you.
So some of the puckeriness of this is because I've lost weight, a little bit of weight. I don't think the girls have changed a huge amount. I knew you weren't done. But like if I go from like a 40 band to a 38 band, but the cup size could still not have changed. Like to go from, I'm picking something that's smaller than me, by the way, right now, a 40D to a 38D won't fit. Like it could be the band will fit, but then the cup won't. And it'll be like, well, but why? I should have just been able to do this. But there's different adjustments that have to be made. Because say my rib cage is smaller, but the girls are the same. That's not going to be moving from a 40D to a 38D. That's going to be different. So it's hard to make universal assumptions like that. I think the person who's writing the pattern could have said, okay, if you're doing a 36 or 38 inch chest size, within that range, and again, the 38 doesn't mean that you're 38 inches here. It means like it's actually kind of between here and here. Is your band size. It's so weird how to, but you can't just take your band size and say, that's the size sweater I should make. You really do have to measure your biggest part and like nice and gently, not super squishing and everything. But that person, that's generic instructions could be, if it's a 38 for your overall, and then you have an A cup, a B cup, a C cup, here's how you're going to shift it. But that doesn't mean all A cups to B cups to C, like they're not all the same. That's my frustration with instructions like that. Long story long.
So many factors, like A, boobs are all different. B, the time it takes you to make the article of clothing, you can switch sizes depending on what's going on in life.
And I'm just gonna make this is just gonna be a nice roomy sweater.
Life happens all the time. So you don't know.
I'd rather have it be roomy in case I gain some more weight, But so it's crazy. It could be that if you want to do bust alterations, you totally can do that. But you probably need to try it on as you go and see how it's going, rather than just trusting the generic instructions to work. Because it could be you have to put them here. It could be you have to put them here. It could be you need more space between them than they're implying, that kind of thing. So just keep all that in mind.
And
Just
it could be based on what type of sweater you are making, because there's the all over yoke, increased yoke, like that. There's the raglan, there's the drop shoulder, there's seam, there's a billion different styles.
A lot of those short row instructions will not necessarily be up in the yoke, because most people's girls are down under the underarms. It's true. But yeah, it could shift it a little. And the short rows, like I have this vision of doing because short rows add in like this or this, it can, and a lot of times short rows are used for back shaping, but I have this image of just a little like pucker thing here that your boobs are supposed to be able to fit into, and it may or may not, it may look lovely. It really depends on there's so many variables involved. If it doesn't work for one sweater, it doesn't mean it won't work for another. If it doesn't work on one person, it doesn't mean it won't work for another. It really is. It's just like picking up stitches or weaving in ends, or like, it's not an exact science. It's seaming, there's a lot of fudging that goes, if you make a pieced sweater, there's a lot of fudging that happens. There isn't like a magic, some people will claim there's a magic ratio, there's a magic this, that, and the other. Oftentimes you have to mess with it and try again. And if that's not your cup of tea, don't do it.
And just like,
or no going in, it's
just like with any, I have the perfect fix for holes in socks, holes in underarms, boobs, whatever.
Holes in boobs.
Those are fixes that work for them. They may or may not work universally.
Yeah. So try them, but know that if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean you failed. It means it doesn't work for you. Do something else. So we have another question.
We do. And she sent an edit to it, so I'm going to read it and try and edit out the part that she said.
Well, we just don't have to worry about the gauge part, right?
Yeah. Okay. Dear Becky and Lizzy, I've been leveling up my color work skills, and I have a few questions about gauge tumbling around in my brain. Typically, I go up half a needle size for color work and all as well. How is tighter
half a needle size? Half a millimeter, maybe?
It just says half a needle size. I'm reading it. I don't know. How is tighter color work possible without puckering? Is it normal to lose rows when working color work? I dropped from 26 rows in one color down to 20 rows with two colors. Same yarn, same project, long yoke, LOL.
I'm working semi backwards through this one too. Is row gauge is always this mystical foreign, like doesn't really work for me thing anyway. So, and I haven't even measured on this. Like this is a color work sweater that we could talk about for ages. Oftentimes color work, stranded color work gets tighter, right? Even with our best intentions, even trying to keep it super loose, it can, because you're carrying one yarn behind the other, it can often lead to, and any attempt to try to keep gauge can lead to pulling behind stitches and leaving them tighter, or leave the whole work getting like all the stitches getting smaller, because things are pulling at strands are pulling at other strands, crossing gaps of the other color behind the scenes. And so I'm thinking she meant half a millimeter size, maybe, or a needle size, like half a needle size. There aren't necessarily in between needle sizes to do half a, unless you're doing like one row with one needle and one row with another, which I've heard of. Like if your if your row gauge is off, then purl with one color and knit with another. If you're doing flat with, let's try that again. Purl with one needle and knit with purl with a smaller needle and knit with a bigger needle. And I'm like, what? Like, apparently that works. I've never tried it. I'm not going to advocate it, because I would think,
just don't purl.
Well, that too. So, so I would think that you would actually have rows of stitches of different sizes, and overall that would even out. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather have it be even. I tend to, when it gives me a stitch gauge and a row gauge, I go for the stitch gauge, because that'll depending on how the garment's made, right? That will change how it fits here. if my row gauge is off, I just do more or fewer rows, hopefully to compensate. Like if this wasn't going to be long enough, I would just do more rows of the ribbed color work to make it long enough, that kind of thing. But I could totally see how just doing color work would tighten stuff up. This sweater had the recommendations of your regular needle size. And then for the color work, she had you go up 2 needles. So hers was written for like a 4 and a 6 probably. And I got gauge on a 6 fingering weight. So this is actually color work on an 8 and fingering weight. And I gotta say, like, this is a little bit more puckery and weird. And this all looked puckery and weird. And the longer it's been sitting in timeout waiting to get done,
the more it settles
the more
in
it's
and
been,
just look
the
normal.
more it's settled. I haven't even blocked this part and it looks amazing. Well, except for this little whoop, 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 whoop. It looks amazingly better than this. And from a distance, this probably looks awesome too. But this, there's a whole bunch of stitches in here that are sucked back in and I might've done them too tight. But I think I had the same issue with this, but it's been sitting here in the shop and it looks amazingly better than when I did it. When I first had it here in the shop, it looked
Sad.
It looked sad. Like it didn't look right. And I was like, should I keep going? And this looks a little sad. And should I keep going? But I'm going to trust that it's going to even out like that, especially with blocking. My other colorwork sweater looks a lot better after having been blocked.
Regardless of needle size, you want to keep your floats as loose as
you possibly can, because you can always kind of pull the floats to the back.
Yeah.
To even out your stitches. But one of her questions was about tighter color work. Is there a way to get tighter color work without the puckering?
How is tighter color work possible without puckering?
Some of that's needle size and some of it's going to pucker until you block it. So again, the issue of usually wanting tighter color work and having it pucker is because your mind to make the tighter color work is I have to pull tighter to pull my stitches tighter and that just pulls your floats tighter and that makes puckering. So again, I would try to control that just like regular gauge. I would try to control that more with your tools rather than your tension, because your tension is what it is. And if anything, the struggle with color work is to try to keep your tension looser than you think it should be, which if you want tighter color work, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's impossible. Smaller needles, like hats. And a lot of times color work, they'll have you do it. Like the recommendations from the pattern writer will be to do it on a much smaller needle than you think you should be knitting with. The white squirrel hats we have here in the shop, it's from a squirrels pattern that when I did it on, because of the needle she was and the gauge that she wanted, I did it on sport weight, but she actually has it written for DK or worsted with a 4 needle. And when I first opened the shop, I was like, that's crazy talk. I wouldn't do that. But it's because that will make your stitches tighter and have less of a chance of your floats being noticed behind it. So that's how to create tighter color work, is to go to a smaller needle. Now, if that's going to throw your gauge off on a big project, that's a struggle. You could always try with your blocking to compensate for what's shrinking with your needle size.
Which means you need looser floats.
Yes.
So tighter stitches, looser floats.
Yeah, which again, smaller needle, looser floats, because that's going to eventually, again, not an exact science. That's the problem with color work to some extent, right? So my Jupiter crop, I did that all on a 7. So I actually didn't, and the color work is pretty nice and tight, but not because I went on a smaller needle there. I went on with what would give me gauge, and I kind of trusted the process, and it evened out a little bit with blocking. But especially on smaller items, I really recommend, if you want something tighter, go smaller with your needle. And know that a lot of puckering can be resolved with blocking. Blocking is not a magic cure for everything, but blocking can help settle things a lot. Now, going back to the issue of gauge, and some of the gauge stuff she's not worried about, so we didn't read it and we didn't address it. But that is the flip side of all of this, is you really want to try to get gauge as well if you want something to fit. So like the Jupiter crop, I did a gauge swatch with the color work, because color work is going to change how the measurement of your stitches. Like doing a gauge swatch for this is different than this. So when it said go up 2 needles for this, I was like, that's not going to work. It was fine.
Well, and you've learned also when you're doing your gauge swatch, like I remember giving you so much grief because you make these little bracelets in color work. In the round. Like she'll do in the round.
And I didn't do that at
because
first.
If the color work is flat, it's going to have a different gauge than if the color work's in the round. You
would be surprised. Your pearls are different than your knits. So that's why someone was advising, like, do your pearls on a different needle. But the way you do stitches in pearl, especially with color work, a lot of color work, if it's done in the round, you never really purling if it's all knit stitches, you know. And if you did that flat, you would have issues. You would have, and some people do, I do like a little bracelet. I do like so many repeats where I can do like a little sleeve, even if it's going to be a big sweater, but I have enough on one side I can measure my stitches. Some people will go straight across and leave a big, huge loop and go straight across again, a big, huge loop of yarn. But some way to represent what you're going to be doing when you do the bigger thing. And then my biggest thing with a gauge swatch is don't yank too hard on it. If you choose to block a gauge swatch, don't pull too hard on it, because that's going to change it might tell you, oh, good, when I block it, it's going to settle out. But unless you're going to pull really hard on your final piece to block it, you're not getting an accurate measurement of your stitches. You're getting an accurate measurement of like something yanked.
And your project the exact same way. Because if you steam block something and then you wet block, it's going to look completely different. So, yeah.
So like if you're being aggressive and trying to pull your gauge swatch to a perfect square, like, and fit the measurements and stuff, then if your sweater is coming out way too small, it's because you need to pull your sweater the same way you did your gauge swatch, or just be a lot more gentle with your gauge swatch. Don't try to make it perfect and fancy.
And your sweater is heavier, so when you pull it out of the water,
well, that's the opposite side too.
You can inadvertently stretch it, whereas with your gauge swatch, you just kind of grab it and, you know. So
I find in my my video on swatching and I'm blocking, not swatching, blocking my other sweater, get as much water back out of that thing as you can if you don't want it to grow. So I throw it in the washing machine on spin cycle, so it's only damp and not like sopping wet and like going to stretch. We had someone come in who was rolling their blocked piece, their soaked block piece in towels, and it might have crushed the cables to really squish it that hard. They might fluff up eventually, but that's another thing, that if you have just a spin cycle on your washing machine at home, that can be a way to, or a salad spinner, if it's something really small, that can be a way to get a lot of water out without super crushing it. So, you know, it might fluff back, it might not, it's hard to say. So we are out of time. I was going to share all kinds of stories. I have mousecapades. If I still remember them next week, I will share them. But this was more important to address these questions. I hope we finished answering kind of everything. So, yeah. So a lot of the answers today had to do with, it's not an exact science, and there's a delicate balance of messing around with stuff and seeing what works for you. That's 90% of knitting, and I would say also crocheting. So
yeah. Crochet. If you're building a piece to fit, it's not an exact science, because everybody's body is different.
Yep. We got to go.
That's okay.
We got to go because we talked over the time, because I came in late. It's my fault. All right. I'm going to try to finish this over the weekend. We're going to talk about things that we think would make great gifts for knitters and crocheters, either for you to get for someone or tell other people to get for you. If you're like, don't get me yarn because you'll get me something random I'll never use, I totally understand that. Hopefully we'll hit that next Tuesday. Yeah. So come join us for Knit Night tomorrow night. And if you're local, come join us if you're in town for the Twilight Tour on Saturday. Bye, everybody. We love you. We miss you. Subscribe. At least hit the like if you like this video. So we're up to 645 subscribers. If we can get to 700, we will have another sale. Ooh, just for YouTube. Yay. You can also support us over on Patreon if you would like to financially throw a little money our way to help with the production of all these, high quality production of all these videos. Patreon.com/sundragon. But ways you can help us without spending a dime is subscribing here and liking and commenting and helping all the little algorithms to make us like reach more people. I was about make us superstars. We're not trying to be superstars, but grow the Sun Dragon community. That would be lovely. I have to carry this with me because it's my umbilical cord. And go shut off the video. Bye.